I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the heart of the 1960s with Richard Halvey's The Kingpins of Riverbend. Set against the fading glow of a small town on the Mohawk River, this novel captures the lives of 7 pinboys at a bowling alley, each wrestling with their destinies during a time of change. From personal battles to the high-stakes drama of a bowling match that could decide their town's fate, the author crafts a narrative rich with tension, humor, and best of all, heart. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his remarkable book. The links are below this interview. Rich, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
You too. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Is this kind of inspired a little bit about your own childhood, boyhood, whatever you'd like to say?
I decided I wanted to write a book. And I was a little bit older, and I remember my father telling me that he was a pin boy, and that kind of is where I went. I took off from there. So yeah, the setting is very close to where I grew up, which was Amsterdam, New York. Sometimes I say Amsterdam, forgetting the New York, and people think I'm Dutch. But uh, anyway, so the geography is kind of similar. The characters, I think they're unique. I don't think they're people I knew or anything like that. So, there's Gianni and Vinnie and Danny and that whole list. There's 7
Yeah.
characters that are bowlers. I'm sorry, working at the bowling alley, and there's some background on how there got to be a bowling alley there. There was a guy from Ireland who came over to the United States, and he was working in a factory and started to pick up some of the scraps and make brooms, and everybody really liked his brooms, and ultimately he became the owner of a very big broom factory.
Mm.
That's somewhat true. There was a broom factory, and where I lived, there was a broom factory, and I think that was the issue. I think the broom industry, certainly got hit hard by the vacuum, but
Mm.
it, it was it
Every
was
industry gets whacked by another industry
what
eventually, it
happened.
seems, right?
What happened in this case was that uh, that the industries that were there, it was a really thriving city. And if you've ever been to like Cooperstown or some
Hmm.
places like that, they've really done a lot to make the downtown look pretty. And and they have the Hall of Fame as the major draw, and West Point is like that. But um, it it Riverbend it was still kind of a, when you looked at the architecture, it was, it's not eye catching. It just
Hmm.
it looked like a rough industrial town. And when
Right.
the industries moved south because there was no unions and the salaries were going to be low, they were going to make more money. Uh, the town just, it didn't know what to do. A lot of people fled, uh, and the ones that were there just, it was kind of, the phrase I used was that it was a town that was existed to keep dying, and
Mm.
we, ultimately is going to be worse than what it is now.
Yeah. The book dives into some heavy themes as well, such as war trauma and loss. Tell us a little bit about balancing these different elements with the lighter, more humorous moments you find in the book as well.
I think that when I was 18, I don't know if you were old enough to remember the lottery. There was a
Oh, yeah.
draft lottery, and I was number 42, and I had my uh, physical and mental acuity tests, and they said, "All right, you're ready. We'll give you a call when it's time to go." And it, it turned out that uh, Nixon called off the war before they got to my number. So
That's like a
what I got, yeah, but you know what I got is what was, I started looking at it, and those guys would come home. Some of them would be injured seriously. Some of them would have PTSD, and they really had a hard time when they go back to the States because nobody was really supporting him. It's not like now where everybody's thank you for your service.
Hmm.
It was like, baby killer and that sort of
Right.
thing. So one of the pin boys was a guy, who had gotten injured in Vietnam and uh, wound up, he sort of thought, why are we doing this? We go up the hill during the day, we take the hill, and then we go to bed at night, and then the Vietnamese
Hmm.
um, come down and take the hill back, and every day it was this kind of like. So it sounds very, it's almost ridiculous
You
to.
feel like you're in a hamster wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous to think about. That's how war is conducted,
Right.
up and down the hill every day.
Yeah.
So, and there were other things. There was a girl whose father was a minister, and her mother had died. So he had an opportunity to move to Riverbend and have his own church.
Hmm.
There was it was interesting. I had to figure out. I turned out I needed 7 pin boys to. It was a 6-lane alley, so I
Hmm.
needed 7 pin boys. So everybody got one day off, and
Hmm.
plus Sunday. So there was that, and uh, I think they really had uh, a lot of. They developed this idea of teamwork and respect for each other, and I think a lot of it was subtly Gianni, who would ask questions. There was also another soldier from 1945 when just right before D-Day. D-Day was originally scheduled for June 5th, and they called it off because of the bad weather, and
Hmm.
then it moved to June 6th. But when they got the word they were going to hold, he went out, and, you know, you know, got drunk, and the sergeant
Yeah.
found him laying there, kicked him, and he came back and hit him in just the right place to kill him, and he spent 7 years in jail. So he came out. He nobody would hire him, so he became a pin boy, kind of an alcoholic. So you find that everybody's got a story to tell, and I think what Gianni and to some extent Vinnie do is kind of make them tell your story. What are you doing about you know making your life better?
Hmm.
And then I don't want to give away too much of the book,
Sure. Sure.
but
It's an interesting intertwining that you have between the lives of the pinboys and the town's struggle for survival.
exactly.
Um, what do you hope readers take away from that?
I think that you know you've got to understand that what happens to the town is related to how much interest and work they can put in. Somebody had to come up with a good plan, and the
Hmm.
guy that uh, in the book did, uh, he decided that a big mall, well, somewhat big mall, would help things because everybody wanted to have jobs and things like that. So that was his thing, and he was also they set up a match between a character named Mingo, who I don't know if you ever saw the old Daniel Boone series.
Hmm.
Uh, Daniel Boone's Indian partner was named Mingo,
Hmm.
and that's where that name came from. So they had uh, Mingo was the best bowler in the city, and in fact, he was an incredibly good bowler. In the professional bowling league at that time, somewhere in September, the season ended.
Mm.
This had all these months where you weren't making money. So the good ones would go out and, they would sort of move from place to place having matches, and there was a lot of betting and other things going on. So, it's kind of, it's simple to look at, it's complicated to dig into.
Yeah.
And, so the bowling match, the big issue with the bowling match, the thing about the bowling match is that it's, well, it's a surprise.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One or the other wins.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what's interesting about your story. It's a multi-layered story. There's a lot there to unpack. There's a lot there to digest. There's a lot to take away from it. Richard Halvey's book is called The Kingpins of Riverbend. It's set against the fading glow of a small town. The novel captures the lives of 7 young men at a bowling alley, each wrestling for their own destiny at a time of great change. Rich, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
I'm happy to be there.
Pleasure having you on the show, my friend. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time until next time on Spotlight.